Yo, what up, everybody? My name is Drake Demore from the Win City Sports Podcast, and this episode of Cedric Ben's Combat Quarter is brought to you by the Win City Sports Podcast. Check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere podcasts are found, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or directly on wincitysports.com. Smell you later.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Cedric's Combat Corner. I am your host, Cedric Ben. Today on this Triple C's podcast, we'll be going over the baddest mother effer belt in the UFC, Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz. And the boxing training focus of the week, the BTF of the week, is sitting down on your punches. Just some verbal cues to tell yourself while training or even during a fight, and a few specific things to work on while you're hitting the bag or hitting pads. Sitting down on your punches. All right, let's get into it. So, Diaz and Masvidal. So, as I explained last time when Nate Diaz had a big fight a couple weeks ago, his number one strength is his relentless cardio. Like, this guy, he doesn't just have, like, he's not just in good shape. He's in that I don't get tired type shape. Let me just briefly explain the other advantage of having that great cardio. So obviously, you want to have great cardio to be able to maintain good form and technique for the duration of the match. But the other advantage that you get if you're in great condition is if you're exchanging and you get hit with a hard punch, if you get caught with something big, you can recover a lot faster if you're in shape. If you get caught with something and you're in out of shape, that's just gonna make your condition worse much faster. Diaz's great conditioning is what helped him last as long as he did in that match, because he was taking some bombs. Masvidal was very accurate with his punches. He was mixing it up too. He gave him something I like to call the Tyson special, with the lead foot that's forward, throwing that same hand to the body and throwing that same hand to the head, where it's an uppercut to the body, hook to the head. Obviously, Tyson's not the first person to do it, but during my time, he was the best one at it. Anyways, Masvidal, yeah, man. And Masvidal did get hit a few times. He does have some good boxing, offense and defense, talking about Masvidal. But the thing is, Diaz, he doesn't sit down on his punches, and that's one of the things I was going to talk about in the BTF boxing training focus of the week. As great as his relentless cardio is, because he can keep up that pace of just giving you pop type shots all night long, because he doesn't sit down on his punches, on most opponents that will just wear them down. If you're not even close to his conditioning, he's just going to wear you down with that. But if you're in great shape like Masvidal was, you might get hit with one or two of those, but because Diaz doesn't sit down on them, there's not that much power on his punches. And so that's the way the fight went. It was back and forth, but Masvidal was catching Diaz with some big bombs. Hence, you saw what Diaz's face looked like after the fight. Now, speaking of the ending of the fight, the stoppage. So I see a lot of people are mad, saying that it looked like an early stoppage. The crowd started booing after the fight. Of course, Nate Diaz wanted to continue. He's a fighter. He wanted to continue. And I even heard another fighter say that same referee messed up his fight by stopping it too early. But listen, I don't know about the history of that specific referee, but I do agree with this stoppage. This is what people have to understand, man. That if you look closely, that cut covered the entire length of his eyebrow. And underneath it went halfway under, like it covered his cheek and halfway underneath his eye too. So of course Diaz wanted to continue. That's why people love him. He's one of those guys that would die in there. But this is one of them cases where the people that are around you, this is what you got to make sure you have good people around you to save yourself from your own pride. Like seriously, if you have an injury that has a chance of having like permanent damage. It's one thing to maybe, break your arm or your wrist or hurt your leg and still being able to fight through that. But if you have an injury that might be permanent, specifically in the face, specifically near your brain, you got to take that serious, man. It's not one of those warrior moments where you just try to push through it. Plus, Diaz was losing the fight anyway. But anyway, like I said, it's one of them cases where as the coach or the referee or the doctor has to come in and save the fighter from his own pride. As I always say, I say this to everyone, to all fighters who try to act like they would rather die in the ring than for someone to stop it early. I'd rather you be mad at me for stopping it too early rather than me coming to visit you in the hospital because I stopped it too late. And there's usually no argument after that, right? So yeah, safety first, man. Remember, obviously it's a sport. We don't play it. You don't play MMA. You don't play boxing like you play other sports. But at the same time, it is a sport. You're trying to go home to your family and you're trying to see with both eyes. I don't know if people understand if that thing would have got any worse, like there's a chance he could have permanently lost his vision in his eye. People want to talk about their booing because he should have stood. Anyways, safety first, safety first. I'm all about safety first. Now for the breakdown of each fighter. Starting with Mr. Diaz first. Like, he's had a long career. I don't know exactly, but I'm assuming he's been in the game more than 10 years now. He's probably got close to 30 fights, something like that. Nate Diaz, if he's still going to continue fighting, I would please, if you know him or know anybody that knows him, please encourage him to keep his mother effing hands up. Don't take advantage of the fact that you can walk through a certain amount of punches, a certain amount of bombs, and still come forward because of your superior cardio. Because as you get older, that punch resistance starts to slow down, and you don't want that. You don't want to have that rude awakening in a fight where you're actually waking up. So please keep your hands up. Yeah, man. That's all really, because nothing else at this point. At this point of a veteran's career, you're not going to add anything. You're not going to do anything new. Only thing you do is sharpen things up. So sharpen up that defense, so you can still talk normal or as normal as you can when you're older. Now, Mr. Masvidal. I love this guy's attitude, man. This guy's real. The crowd was booing. I don't think they were booing him after a fight. They were just booing the fact that of the stoppage or whatever. And he says in the microphone, "Don't boo me," because he wouldn't boo me to my face. So I love this guy. You can tell, like some guys, they say they put on an act, just for marketing purposes. They're not really the person that they portray themselves to be. They're just doing that to act to make more money. I don't really believe in that. Yeah, you might not make as much money, but just be yourself. That's what I really respect Masvidal. Because you can tell he's not being a fake. You can tell he's really him when he's talking. As far as what I would suggest for him to improve on, defense, man, defense. He didn't get hurt, so it's not like it's a severe case. But I think it's a little bit of a case because it was Nate Diaz. But someone who sits down under punches, that might be good night. He did take a couple of good shots, but again, Nate didn't really sit down on those punches. So just make sure you sharpen up that defense. That's going to be as you notice, that's usually my main thing when I'm talking about suggestions for the fighters to do, whether it's boxing or MMA for their next match. I'm all about defense first. So yeah, there you have it. Masvidal and Diaz. Baddest mother effer breakdown. And now for the BTF boxing training focus of the week. Sitting down on your punches. I'm going to talk about a few ways to help you punch harder, to make sure that your opponent respects you and not just has the confidence to walk you down. So the basic concept is basically just making sure that you use your legs more, bending your legs more, squatting down. So on the heavy bag, a way to practice that is like sometimes I'll tell the boxers you have to throw a whole round of only throwing body shots. Now at the end of the round, your legs should feel a little bit tired from the constant squatting down. And just for the purpose of the drill, I always emphasize for people to exaggerate squatting down on your legs just to make sure that your brain is wired to understand that the power comes from your legs, not from winding up your arm. All in the legs, sitting down. Same thing on pads. Me personally, when I'm doing pads with boxers, I don't encourage throwing power. I'm not sacrificing my shoulders so you can get better. But just for the sake of it, if you're a coach that doesn't mind your boxers punching with power on the pads, then get them to sit down more by, again, turning that back hip, pivoting that back foot, putting the weight onto the front leg for the cross, or turning your front hip and that front leg to put the weight onto your back leg for that hard hook. Again, sitting down. Should feel the weight transfer from front leg to back leg, not just your upper body twisting. Feel the weight transfer from front leg to back leg for the power. And something for the coaches, I guess this could be a training focus of the week for the boxers and for the coaches. During the middle of a fight, when a match is going on, you see something, you might want to yell something. You don't have time to yell a full 2 sentences worth of instructions, but every once in a while you can just yell out some certain thing. Most fighters can hear their coach's voice over the big crowd, even if there's a lot of noise. So one of the things that I like to say out loud is just sit down. Again, going back to sitting down, say it out loud, sit down. Something quick like that to let your fighter understand what to do in that moment during a match. Yeah, and there you have it. Cedric Sports on YouTube. Combat Corner number 18. Much respect. Thank you for listening, taking the time to listen to this. If you have any questions, anything you want me to add to the show, hit me up on all social media at Cedric Sports. Email cedricben@gmail.com. Yeah. Shout out to Win City Sports.